Up next in the broadcast, it's confirmed the leaders of Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet on the sidelines of next week's nuclear security summit. Seoul calls on Pyongyang to start payments on an $80 million loan extended back in 2007. And Russia's parliament overwhelmingly approves the annexation of Crimea from Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin signs it into law. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Friday, March 21st here in Seoul. I'm Ji-hae.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. As widely expected, the leaders of Korea and Japan will meet next week for the first time since they took office alongside their U.S. counterpart.
For details on the three-way meeting on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague and more on President Park Geun-hye's European trip next week, we are joined by our presidential office correspondent Choi You-sun in the studio. So You-sun, they'll meet finally.
Yes, hi, Ji-hae, Sean. Well, speculation had been brewing over whether President Park will actually sit down for talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And earlier today, Korea's foreign ministry said that officials from the two countries will also meet sometime next week to talk about Japan's wartime sexual slavery issue. But many experts say it may be too premature to expect ties between Seoul and Tokyo to improve significantly after just one summit meeting. Friday's announcement comes after President Park recently welcomed Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's reaffirmation of Japan's past apology for military sexual enslavement during World War II. The two leaders haven't officially met for summit talks since both of them took office more than a year ago. Bilateral ties have been strained, especially after Abe's visit late last year to a war shrine that honors several Class A war criminals. It's widely viewed that Korea caved into U.S. pressure to come to the three-way talks. Washington wants strong trilateral ties with both its Northeast Asian allies to ensure regional stability and cope with potential security threats from China. That pressure was likely intensified ahead of U.S. President Barack Obama's visits to Seoul and Tokyo next month. While some experts say the upcoming dialogue could be used to break the impasse between Seoul and Tokyo, others say it would be far-fetched to expect an immediate thawing of relations.
What Korea wants from Japan is an acknowledgement of the illegality of its past colonial rule, an apology from the government, the cabinet, and rightful compensation, as well as restoring the reputation of the victims.
It's also doubtful whether Tokyo will not just speak, but act sincerely about its past atrocities. The Abe cabinet still intends to review the 1993 apology for coercing women into sexual slavery and will likely make further claims to Korea's Dokdo Island in school text next month. In any case, the main agenda at next week's three-way summit are slated to be ways to curb North Korea's nuclear program and seeking a resolution to the crisis in Ukraine. Well, I should also mention that President Park is also scheduled for summit talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where the two leaders will talk about strengthening bilateral ties and regional security surrounding North Korea.
Now let's talk about what the president will be doing after the Nuclear Security Summit. Tell us about what's on her agenda for the Netherlands and Germany.
Well, security and inter-Korean reunification are the two main themes of President Park's European two-nation tour this time around. And at her first stop in The Hague, President Park, as the host of the leader of the previous 2012 Nuclear Security Summit host nation, will give an opening speech alongside UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. This year's conference, the third of its kind, will look at how much each participating nation has followed up on its nuclear reduction and security pledges and discuss cooperation measures to sustain the level of nuclear security. In her address, the Korean president will emphasize that every member of the international community is responsible for preventing nuclear terrorism. President Park will be the first Korean president to visit the Netherlands and will hold summit talks with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. They're expected to focus on boosting cooperation in the areas of energy, science and technology, and nuclear power.
And right, Yoo-sun, tell us more about the second leg of her trip, which is Germany. Quite often we have seen South Korean presidents using the German trips as a way to announce proposals or policies on North Korea.
Right, there's a great amount of attention towards the president's speech that she's going to give at a university in Dresden. The speech is expected to focus on her reunification drive.
President Park expressing her intent on reunification in Germany will be declaring to the world that South Korea will actively prepare for reunification and realize it.
And the South Korean leader will also meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. President Park is expected to convey her policy goals for reunification and ask for Germany's help in accomplishing them. She'll also meet with a number of former German officials who were at the center of reunification to learn from their experiences. Having weathered the economic and social aftermath of the historic event, the unified Germany stands today as a leading nation in the European Union. President Park, who earlier this year said a unified Korea would be a bonanza, will be asking how Germany got to where it is today. Not only from an economic perspective, though, the president, in line with her trust-building policy with North Korea, will also be looking for ideas on improving relations on the Korean peninsula.
All right, you had a lot more to offer than just that. Thank you so much, Yoo-sun, for that report.
All right, anytime.
Everything goes according to plan, Korea will have a leaner fighting. The President
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang's Sean Lim and Ji-hae from the heart of Seoul. Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Next general elections. The South Korean government was forced to play the role of debt collector on this Friday. That's because North Korea missed a Monday deadline to pay off $8.6 million of a loan provided back in 2007.
If history is any indicator, the South shouldn't expect a prompt payment from the North. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Seoul is calling on Pyongyang to repay millions of dollars in loans that were borrowed years ago. A South Korean unification ministry official said Friday that the communist regime was due to make a payment of $8.6 million on Monday as part of an $80 million loan given to the North back in 2007.
Should the North fail to make the first repayment on the 24th toward the cost of raw materials borrowed, we will request that they pay it as of the 25th.
The loan came in the form of raw materials that were used to produce clothing, footwear, and soap. With interest included, Pyongyang is due to pay $86 million to the South over the next 10 years. South Korea's state-run Export-Import Bank sent a message to the North last month, informing it of its payment obligation. But Pyongyang has yet to reply. It's not the first time Pyongyang has missed a loan payment. They've missed several deadlines to pay down $724 million of food loans provided by South Korea in 2000 and 2007. All told, the communist regime is due to repay the South over $931 million by 2037, including principal and interest, for food and raw material loans. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
One day after President Park Geun-hye made her case for deregulation in a televised meeting alongside business leaders, the government laid out its roadmap for getting it done.
The Prime Minister's office said Friday that it has already started organizing a list of the suggestions made by experts and private companies on cutting red tape in 5 promising service sectors like tourism, health, and education. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok also discussed ways to pass legislation related to the president's push with ruling party lawmakers. The government plans to deliver a detailed schedule of the administration's deregulation drive to related ministries early next month.
The 10th round of free trade talks between Korea and China wrapped up on this Friday. The two sides were unable to make any significant progress, agreeing only to try again the next time around. Na Young-kyung has more.
There were no major breakthroughs on the Korea-China FTA, says Korea's chief FTA negotiator Woo Tae-hee. After wrapping up the talks, which took place over 5 days in Ilsan, north of Seoul, Woo told reporters the two sides were only able to agree to disagree.
We demanded that China lift tariffs on our manufacturing goods in the early stage, while China asked for an opening of Korea's agricultural market. The two sides were in a tug-of-war, and not much progress could be made.
But he added it doesn't mean the talks were falling apart. Seoul and Beijing are still in the process of understanding each other's needs, and they will meet again in May or June for another round of talks in China. During this round, the two discussed tariff concessions on various goods, including items classified as both sensitive and highly sensitive. China is Korea's top trading partner, with analysts predicting that Seoul's GDP will increase by up to 3% in the 10 years after the deal takes effect. But farmers in Korea oppose the deal, saying it will devastate Korea's agricultural sector. Another issue of contention related to the deal is illegal fishing by Chinese fishermen in Korean waters. Korean trade officials worry that fish illegally caught by Chinese fishermen in Korea's West Sea could end up enjoying tariff benefits. Trade officials say the issue has not been an official subject of debate during the negotiations yet, but added that Korea will continue to raise the issue so the two can formally discuss the matter in the coming rounds of talks. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News, Sejong.
There's a new face on Seoul's skyline. After years of development and hundreds of millions of dollars, Diamond Design Plaza finally opened to the public on Friday. Our Shin Se-min gives us a look at the architectural gem that has people talking.
It's like no other structure in the South Korean capital. This free-flowing, curved building that looks like a spaceship is Diamond Design Plaza, and over 900 people, ranging from politicians and fashion designers, were on site Friday to welcome it. Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon in his welcoming speech said the structure is an architectural gem. He acknowledged the building's high price tag of $460 million, but said it would bring about over $12 billion in production and employment in just 2 decades. Designed by the Pritzker-winning Iraq-British architect Zaha Hadid, the building is shrouded in over 45,000 aluminum panels. The world's largest asymmetrical freeform building, the total space amounts to over 85,000 square meters. The structure, with no straight supporting pillars, has people in awe.
I came out to see the opening ceremony of the building, and it looks like a spaceship has landed in the center of Seoul. The flow of the architecture is unique in its own way.
Diamond Design Plaza is located in the center of Korea's trendy Dongdaemun fashion district. It'll serve many purposes, with a number of exhibition spaces scattered over 4 floors and 3 underground levels. Korea's national treasures, along with the design exhibit by Hadid, are on display in 8 different exhibition rooms. To showcase Seoul's new star, the capital will extend city tour buses and airport buses services. Some 6,000 to 7,000 tourists visit the district of Dongdaemun each day, and the Seoul metropolitan government envisions this new landmark as a new cultural hub for the South Korean capital. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And it's time for In the Press, where we look at some of the hot issues that have grabbed the attention of the domestic media this week.
From propaganda in North Korea to the pollution crisis in Paris, we go over now to our Yu Lian.
Good evening and happy Friday. Now I want to start with a feature article on North Korea from Chosun Ilbo. And now the story here gives us some insight into the disparity between what North Korean textbooks teach students there about South Korea and how they actually view South Korea. Now, the title up here reads, North Korea textbooks call South Korea a living hell. In reality, Korean-made rice cookers cosmetics popular. Now, directly under the title, there's a photo photo from a North Korean textbook that shows a girl holding a sign which reads, "Please buy my eye." Now, she's identified in the textbook caption as a North Korean defector in the streets of Seoul, and it's meant to explain the type of life North Korean defectors have down here in South Korea. Now, the article also says the U.S. has made South Korea a living hell where terror and oppression is prevalent. But take a look at this image on the right. You see a North Korean soldier keeping a close watch on North Koreans. But nevertheless, families are enjoying South Korean dramas on TV and using a South Korean-made rice cooker and TV. Now, the article brings light to the stark difference between North Korean authorities' efforts to brainwash their people to turn them against South Korea and the North Korean people who, with a good sense of South Korea's standard of living, appreciate South Korean-made products. Now let's go on over to this next article from 중앙일보, which tells us that it's not just Beijing that's suffering from the smog crisis. Now the title up here reads, as suffocating as Beijing, Paris imposes alternate day driving. Now Paris has also seen its smog levels peak in the past week, surprisingly on par with Beijing, one of the world's most polluted cities. Now you see here the Eiffel Tower covered in smog, and on the right it says Paris saw its air quality index reach 185 micrograms, which is higher than Beijing's 156 earlier this week, and also twice the accepted safe limit of 80 micrograms. Now, this has prompted French authorities to limit the number of cars on the road for the first time since 1997. It's definitely disturbing to see cities elsewhere around the world joining with Beijing in the smog crisis, signaling that air pollution is rising as a global environmental problem. Now let's take a look at this next article from Business Daily, the main business newspaper. Now the headline up here reads, "Price of coffee 1.5 times the price of lunch." Now coffee here in Seoul, like in many other fast-paced cities around the world, has become a routine part of people's lives, and the market for coffee shops is becoming overheated as they compete with one another. So to find a new competitive edge, coffee shops here are going premium. Now, the article tells us that Starbucks launched a gourmet coffee brand called Starbucks Reserve earlier this week. These high-end cups of coffee are brewed only by people who have gone through specialized barista training programs. And depending on the coffee beans they use, the price for a cup of coffee could go as high as $10. Now that, according to the article, is 1.5 times the average cost that people spend on lunch. Now it's not just Starbucks. 4 more major coffee chains have also launched similar premium branches in the past few months. Now these chains do definitely seem to be targeting a group of coffee fanatics, but in the long run, will these stores draw in enough people who want to opt out of a decent lunch for premium coffee? Now that we'll have to wait and see. Now with that, I'll end your look into the Korean press this week.
Let's get the latest on the top stories on the global front, from the escalating tension over Crimea to a threat out of Turkey to pull the plug on Twitter. We go live to our Paul Lee at the News Center.
So, Paul, it looks like Moscow is speeding through its annexation of Crimea. Give us an update of the situation.
Well, there have been rapid developments on that front in just the last few hours. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a treaty on Crimea joining the Russian Federation after both houses of parliament overwhelmingly approved the treaty. This means, at least from the Kremlin's perspective, that the annexation of Crimea from Ukraine has been officially completed. Meanwhile, Russian forces continue to take over more Ukrainian military bases in Crimea as Ukraine speeds up its withdrawal of soldiers and their families from the region.
And Paul, amid all this, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has traveled to Kiev to broker a possible diplomatic solution. Tell us what he had to say.
Well, the UN chief urged both sides to sit down and engage in direct and constructive dialogue to resolve the crisis. He also urged Russia to respect the integrity of Ukraine's territory and expressed deep concern over the current situation. Earlier Thursday, Ban met with President Putin in Moscow. also urging him to reach a peaceful settlement. This comes as the United States and Russia doled out a fresh round of sanctions on key officials Thursday. The European Union has slapped travel bans and asset freezes on 12 more people, bringing the number of Russians and Ukrainians facing EU sanctions to 33. The 28-nation bloc said it would publish the full sanctions list on Friday. Shifting to political tensions in Thailand, the top court there has ruled that the results of last month's general election are invalid. Officials say they annulled the February 2nd poll because nationwide voting did not take place in every constituency on the same day. The election, called by embattled Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, ran into problems after protesters blocked candidates from registering in 28 districts. The court now has ordered a new round of elections, although no date has been set. Protesters say they plan to disrupt any elections moving forward. The latest ruling has further delayed the formation of a new government after months of anti-government protests aimed at ousting the prime minister. Turning now to civil unrest in Turkey, where the government is set to crack down on social media ahead of general elections. Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan has threatened to shut down Twitter and other social networking services, which he says have been abused by his enemies to spread false allegations. Erdogan has been battling a corruption scandal since documents and audio recordings were posted online 2 weeks ago, reportedly showing evidence of corruption.
Can you imagine? There are international conspiracies. Twitter. We have a court order now. We will wipe out all of these. The international community can say this, can say that. I don't care at all. Everyone will see how powerful the Republic of Turkey is.
Since yesterday, some of the 10 million users in Turkey trying to access Twitter are being redirected to a government website. However, President Abdullah Gül has challenged the ban, saying in a tweet Friday that the shutdown was unacceptable and that websites could only be blocked if they violated personal privacy. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here next week.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. Now, South Korea has stepped up to defend one of its iconic sports stars, Kim Yeon-ha, over the controversy surrounding the judging at the ladies' figure skating event at the Sochi Winter Games. The Korean Olympic Committee and Korea Skating Union will jointly file a complaint with the International Skating Union over the composition and fairness of the judging panel. They also said that they didn't want to rush the move so as not to damage their relationship with the ISU and put their athletes at a disadvantage in future competitions. Well, as for the Ice Queen, Kim Yeon-ha has said that she put the results behind her and has retired for good. She's currently preparing for her farewell ice show slated for early May. And moving to the fairways, Adam Scott flirted with history at the PGA's Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill, while rookie Lee Mi-rim tops all the ladies at the JTBC Founders Cup. Over in Orlando, Florida, Scott was a man on a mission, scoring an opening round 10 under 62 to tie the course record and for the three-shot lead. A win will put him within striking distance of Tiger Woods' top ranking. Meanwhile, in Phoenix, Arizona, Korea's Lee Mi-rim scored a solid 8 under par for the early lead, so far beating out fellow national and the world's #1 Park In-bi, who's tied for third. And going down under, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Arizona Diamondbacks will ring in the 2014 Major League Baseball season in front of a sellout crowd in Australia. Some 80,000 people will fill the Sydney Cricket Ground as they play 2 games over the weekend. The visiting Dodgers will have ace Clayton Kershaw taking on the D-backs Wade Miley on Saturday and Ryu Hyun-jin facing Trevor Cahill on Sunday. Meanwhile, the D-backs were blanked by Australia 5-0 in their final preseason game. Now it's men's playoff action in the V-League. Hyundai Capital hosted Korean Air in Cheonan for the first of a 3-game series. And the crowd was charged as the home team cruised through the first set. But Hyundai Capital would not stop there. They blew by an overwhelmed Korean Air for the second set as well as the third. Hyundai Capital wins in straight sets with action heading to Incheon on Sunday. And that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
It's feeling more and more like spring, and I hear this weekend will be nice and sunny.
For more, let's connect live to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung.
Happy Friday, guys. Some parts of the East Coast regions are currently seeing sporadic showers. However, those will soon clear out. The cold conditions will stick around through tomorrow morning. However, temperatures will quickly jump to the mid to high teens over the weekend. And it looks like numbers will stay above the seasonal averages for a while. Taking a look at the current conditions, the nation is under the influence of a high-pressure system from China, which is why we're seeing clear skies across the map. But just when we thought things were going to be perfect, there is a slight possibility that fine dust levels may rise tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, another round of spring showers is forecast next Tuesday. Let's take a look at Saturday's numbers. Seoul and Busan make it to 16 degrees, while Hague jumps to 19. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Jeju reach the mid-teens, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang top out at 9 and 2. Well, make sure to get outside and enjoy the lovely weather. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more after midnight.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that's our broadcast on this Friday night. I'm Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.